Hi, I'm Mara Webster within Creative Company, and thank you so much for tuning into one of our talks today. I'm so thrilled today to be talking to some of the creative team behind the movie Collection. We're so thrilled today to be joined by Marianna Palka, who's the director of the film, and Alex Pettyfer, who plays Brandon and is also an executive producer on the movie. And Marianna, I wanted to start by talking about the way in which you approach telling this story, because it's diving into the world of debt collection. And there's actually, when you look at the details within the script, there's a really immense level of detail that it's giving about the industry and the impact and the influence that it has, even including those opening title sequence. And so in directing this film and working with the script, how did you approach the way that you wanted to tell this story in capturing all of that without it becoming didactic and always really centering everything back to character?
Well, that's such a good question. It was really inspired by my first meeting with Alex, because when we first met to talk about it, I could tell that we were going to make something really authentic and true, and that felt necessary for America and all countries right now, because it is a story about greed and money and the pressures of that. But it is also a love story. And I think because we were so compelled by the journey of these characters and how real we could make it, that's really why I think we wanted to do the film and why we're so proud of it. It's so cool. It's such a good movie.
And then
Alex is so good at it.
I could already tell some of the dynamic you had on set together.
Yeah, it embarrassed me. I'm not going to say.
And then, Alex, I wanted to talk about your role in producing the film as well as acting, and in particular, how that actually really helped you in terms of your performance on screen and shaping your character in having been so entrenched in this project early on, and also the collaborative relationship that then brought you and Marianna in working together on character development and then shooting a lot of the scenes together on set.
I think when you start making independent film, it can obviously evolve into being bought by a studio, either early on in the stage of development or after the film is finished. But for me, it's important that from a creative point of view, especially on this, because I wasn't so involved in the financial part, I think you have a financial producer and then you have creative producers. And I've played both roles on a few films now, but primarily on this, it was wearing more of a creative hat and kind of supporting Marianna's vision, and kind of, And with that, I think it's always important to have a collaborative experience, and I think sometimes when actors wear just the singular hat, they're not really thinking about a picture as a whole. They're thinking more of an individual journey. And I really love the process of making films. I really adore it. It's something that, I don't know, I can't just focus on one character and go to my trailer and build out that. I really think that it's important that a movie as a whole as a collective experience is something that is enjoyed by everyone. And that's why I sometimes try to wear the producer, or on this, the EP hat. But it was a great experience. And I think when you, as Marianna said, when we first met, when you meet someone that has a very specific concept and idea in their head, like Marianna did, and especially because, there's a lot of truth in this subject, I think it was more following her guidance and kind of, as I said, collaborating together and kind of fine-tuning the movie to kind of be relatable.
Yeah. And Marianna, to that point as well, I was interested in how you really work to create an environment where you're thinking about the individual space that each actor needs from you, particularly looking at the fact that this is your 8th feature, I think, and you always...
It's my 10th. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. I think I saw an old tweet.
There's so many at this point. It doesn't even matter how many. It's like,
you make them so fast, that's why.
Just too many films. It's like, no, it's bad.
But the way in which you tell stories, you always focus so specifically on individual character journeys, whether it's the lead character or whether it's a character that's appearing for one scene, you're always really focusing on the development and the layering of that. And particularly with your own experience acting on this project, what are some of the different ways in which you were working with each cast member individually to make sure that you were shaping the space and what they needed from you as a director?
Well, we made sure to cast people who we really thought were compelling and wonderful actors. And because Alex is such a master actor, you know, it was I knew it was going to be this masterpiece, and I was ready for it. And I was so excited to cast other people who were going to work within our kind of same collaborative ethos. And I also think that because the character that Alex was playing is so ethical inside his heart, he really is equivalent to ethos or something like that, like a kind of a Greek myth of romance, who believes in love even though he's put upon and he has all these hardships. He actually, you know, is correct and does the right thing in the world, which is really, really, really compelling to watch. So we wanted to surround him with people who were going to be as amazing as him as an actor. And so that's why we got Vogel, we got Mike Vogel, we got Jacques Couliman, we got this incredible cast. Shakira Barrera is incredible in this movie. So it was very easy for me to work with everyone, because they all have skin in the game. And likewise, me acting in it, when you're in the ring with them as well, it's fun to get your knees bruised and all that together, you know. It was a laugh. We had a really good time. We shot it in Alabama, you know, and it was a wonderful place to shoot. And it was such a magical time, you know. It was awesome.
I love it. And then Alex, to Marianna's point about the ethical lines that your character has, it's so interesting because we really watch him go on this evolution and this journey, and there's certain things that he is accepting of from the space that he's been pulled into over the years at the beginning. And his moral compass kind of does shift, and where the line is for him changes throughout the film. And so how did you approach that idea of that being an evolution and consistently looking at how you wanted to reestablish that based on the emotional arc that he's going through as a character?
Yeah, I think that anyone who walks this life understands that our viewpoint can change at any point in time, and that our moral and ethics towards certain views are swayed through cause and effect. And I think that this character is an example of that. You know, he is a man that maybe is not the most ethical at the beginning and kind of striving more in a kind of automatic, especially with the trauma of things that have happened to him in the past. And, you know it sounds cheesy and we've heard it millions and millions of times for years and years and years, but love really softens the heart, you know. And when I know Marianna's going to love that. But when you are coming then from a place of love, and you're coming from a sensibility towards that, the view as a character and as a human being changes, and then you start to have this even more layered dynamic of, okay, my viewpoint has changed, but I'm still in the same atmosphere. So how do I adapt? And I think that's a kind of interesting play. And I definitely know Marianna is very pro, you know, love and equality, and you know, really has a strong viewpoint on that. And kind of as far as, because I'm trying to answer this one question, but there's many different elements to it. As far as me as an actor, how I evolved through that is just trust with her, you know, trust with Marianna, having that guidance and having that stability with her to kind of her guiding me, you know, let's veer more this way, veer more that way. I think that's why it's so important to work with great directors.
Mm-hmm. And you
so
mentioned
nice to do that to have that back and forth with each other and really have that wonderful dynamic, you know. It was really the best collaboration of all time, I think, because we started out with so much respect for each other, you know, and went from there, and it was just unbelievable. It was so fun.
Yeah. And speaking of collaboration, I also wanted to talk about Mike Vogel, who you brought up before, and in particular that approach to character and his relationship with your character, Alex, because it's not just about a friendship between the two of them. There really is this kinship, and your character even says, you know, you're a brother to me early on. And then obviously we watch this relationship really start to deteriorate and fall into a place of disarray between the two of them as they end up on these different trajectories from one another. And we see that dynamic early on of these two characters who, part of why they're pulled pulled together is just the history and how long they've known each other and some of their past, not necessarily because they're on the same page. And so for both of you, I was interested in how you wanted to establish that history and that kinship at the beginning of the film, and then how you really wanted to play with the way in which that starts to deteriorate and fall apart, where there is still that history seeping through every moment.
Yeah. Is this for me or Marianna?
Both of you, yeah.
For me, it's very easy to get on with Mike. He's a family man, very humble and a gentleman, and really loves the work, you know. So, you know, there are some times you walk onto a film and there's not always the easiest of friendships that develop organically, because you're basically meeting someone and kind of trying to find common ground and have history, should we say. Yeah, I mean, it was very easy to get on with Mike. And also on top of that, when the dynamic in the film changes between us, because he is so dedicated to the work, and because, again, I know I'm going back to the element of guidance from director, but because we had Marianna at the helm of that, then we really were given, you know, a playground to kind of, work in, where we were kind of guided as well. So, but Mike is a genius actor.
They had such a good time. Obviously, it was so cute because they looked so similar too. Like in the frame, when you look at them, they look like brothers in the cinematic way, even though they don't have any blood, and the characters don't have any blood relation. But it's almost like when you care about someone that deeply, you almost morph into each other. And the fact that they were two kings at the beginning, and then it turns into something that, you know, it doesn't end with two kings at the end. It's a really special journey. And so we definitely prepared a lot. We did rehearsal. We had so much detail in this film, to the color wheel. You know, we cared a lot about the color vision. I kept talking to Alex about like the emotional colors of the movie and why it means something for his character. Like what his character is going through is emotionally the colors that we put in the film. So that's the entire world, and the level of detail. So, you know, when Vogel and everyone else in the film could be in that world, like they could step into a whole different universe, and feel like in rehearsal they were doing that too, because we had so much preparation. That space, I loved that office space. It was so fun. I felt like Hitchcock shooting that office. It was like the easiest place to shoot because we designed it so beautifully. It looks good. The whole movie looks so good, and Meena Singh is amazing, and she's a great person to work with as a cinematographer, and likewise she was really excited to work with Alex and such an amazing cast. So
it does, and I love that you were bringing up the use of color there, because there's so much that you play around with in terms of color and light. Like when we look at the strip club that we go into, there's lots of hues of blue. And then actually one of the things that's really striking about the debt collection office is that it is so bright and there's so much light streaming through, which isn't the way that we usually see those sorts of spaces represented. And so I wanted to ask about the way in which you really used color and light, as well as individual camera choices, to really map the journeys of each character within the film, and the way that stylistically you would approach each of their narratives through visual storytelling.
We definitely blocked it and made... Oh, what were you going to say, Alex?
I was going to say, just so you know, this is the most in-depth kind of questions, like that are so I'm like sitting here, I'm like, I feel like I'm watching a TED talk. I'm like immersed in what you're asking. These aren't normally the general questions that we get asked in a press in a press junket. So yeah,
we love it. We love how deep it is.
I was like, can we have you on every press junket, please?
Done. Thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it.
No, of course.
I think it's the British connection.
It's interesting because, you know, whether you make a good movie, a bad movie, a mediocre movie, it's all dependent. But it's so hard to make a film, you know, especially in the independent space. It's like shooting on the roulette table and putting all your money on one number, because to come together as a band of creatives with very little accessibility and time time being the most crucial, it's really it's a feat, it's a miracle, you know, to do anything. And so to have appreciation for the work, or what you're talking about with camera and light and seeing those things and having that recognition, you know, not everyone sees that, and some obviously have judgment. Oh, that's a great movie, or that's not a great movie, or whatever their personal experience in watching the film is. But to really, ask the things that you're asking is very appreciative.
Thank you.
Anyway,
we love the emotionally complex questions. They're intellectual questions, and we're intellects, so that's good. It works for us.
Amazing. Well, diving back, like what was that kind of mapping out of thinking about light and color uses in camera shots for character tracking?
Well, when we did the shot list, Mina and I shortlisted faster than anyone I've ever shortlisted with. I mean, we were supposed to have these days scheduled, like I think it was weeks scheduled for shortlisting, and we ended up doing it in like 2 days. We shortlisted the whole movie because I don't want to get too woo-woo, but we're both Virgos. Like, we're both born the same week as Beyonce, and we're just organized, you know what I mean? Like, we know what we want, we know the colors we want, we know the feel that we were going for. The film is really about this justified camera movement journey. You know, it's like kind of bringing the rules of a little bit European cinema and 1970s American cinema back. You know, it's really special to get to see these incredible guys.
I can tell you the reason why the movie looks so beautiful is because I think this is the first time I've ever been on a film. I've obviously worked with some great female directors, but I've never been on a film that is purely ran by female empowerment. It was a female director, it was a female cinematographer, it was a female camera operator, and
focus puller, everyone.
Focus puller, and it was just incredible. And you know what's so funny is when you're on these films, there's a lot of, especially other films that I've worked on, there's great, you know, unity, but there's also a lot of how do I put it? Shall I say more directness in things that are needing to be achieved. And to watch this fantastic group of talented individuals come together and have such synergy, you know, it's the reason why we were able to make the movie the way it turned out, because the team on the film, you know, behind the camera was so fantastic.
Yeah. We did have 80, thanks for saying that, Alex. We had 85% females, and definitely a bit more as heads of department. So, you know, costume and production design, everyone was female. I
love it. And I really love the dynamic between the two of you and working on this film is so evident just from this conversation, and want to thank both of you for sharing so much of this. Really appreciate it, Marianna and Alex.
Thank you so much. We loved talking to you.